When you think about a medical record, it seems so technical, right? It's just a jumble of lab results, doctor's notes, and all this jargon. But if you look a little closer, hiding behind all that data, there's a powerful human story. And today, we're going to unlock one. I mean, really think about it for a second. Your own health history, it's all written down in data. It's a story of challenges, of interventions, and hopefully of recovery. We're about to walk through one of those stories, pulled straight from the records. Okay, let's dive in. Here's our roadmap. We're going to start by decoding the record to meet the person at the center of this story. Then we'll get into the anatomy of his stroke, the incredible medical intervention, his journey of recovery, and finally, the plan to get him back home. Right, so to really get this story, we've got to meet the person at the heart of it all. This isn't just about a collection of symptoms. It's about a real person's life getting turned upside down. So meet Gregory Nesbitt. He's 61 years old, a freelance IT tech. But here's a detail you really need to lock in, the key fact from his record. Before all this happened, Gregory was completely independent. That's our starting point, the before picture in his story. Okay, so now we get to the event that changes everything. Gregory's journey actually started months before he was even admitted to the hospital for the big procedure, with a pretty specific and rare type of stroke that really set the stage for everything that came next. This timeline really lays it all out for us, right? You can see that first event back in June. Then, things get serious in October when new symptoms pop up. That leads to the big surgical procedure. And right after that, in November, his intensive recovery begins. So what exactly happened back in June? Well, the record says Gregory was diagnosed with something called Wallenberg syndrome. It's a pretty rare kind of stroke, and it happens when there's a blockage in an artery that feeds the cerebellum. That's the part of the brain that controls things like balance and coordination. Now, this quote from his doctor, Benjamin Hill, it really paints a picture of what Gregory was going through. He had proptosis, a drooping on the right side of his face, vision loss in his right eye, and sensory changes, like numbness or tingling, on the entire left side of his body. And on top of all that, he had ataxia, which is a loss of muscle control, and dysphagia, which means he had trouble swallowing. I mean, wow, that is a life-changing list of symptoms. Then, just a few months later, in October, things got even worse. The records show a new left occipital infarct. In simple terms, that just means another stroke happened, cutting off blood flow to a different part of his brain. This was a huge red flag that the underlying problem wasn't just there, it was getting worse. So this second stroke, well, that was the final straw. It was time for the medical team to take some serious action. They had to move past just managing the symptoms and actually fix the root cause of these blockages. And this is the number that explains everything. An angiogram found a 67% stenosis, that's a narrowing, in his left vertebral artery. I want you to picture a 4-lane highway suddenly being squeezed down to just 1 lane. That's exactly what was happening to the blood flow trying to get to Gregory's brain. So what do you do about that? Well, the solution was a procedure called stenting. Surgeons carefully guide a tiny mesh tube right to that narrowed spot in the artery, and then they expand it. It basically props the artery open and gets that critical blood flowing again. And the result? Well, this note from the neurosurgeon's report after the operation says it all. The stenting was a success. No more blockage, no more flow limitation. The highway was wide open again. Okay, so the immediate danger is over. The artery is open. But that's really just the beginning of the next chapter in Gregory's story, the hard, grinding work of rehabilitation. And this is where you really see the human side of healing come to life. Recovering from something this major, it's not a one-person show. It really does take a village. And Gregory's records show he had a whole team behind him. Doctors, nurses, physical and occupational therapists, a speech pathologist, a social worker, and even a music therapy intern. So did all that hard work actually pay off? Oh, yeah. Get this. When he was first admitted to rehab, Gregory needed moderate physical help from someone just to get his pants on. By the time he was discharged, he only needed someone to supervise. That is a massive leap back toward independence. And this kind of progress, it isn't just a data point. It has a real-world emotional impact. Here's a quick note from the social worker after talking to Gregory's close friend Anne. It says she was relieved to hear he wouldn't need physical help at home. You can just feel the weight lifting off her shoulders in that one little sentence. And this is just my favorite part. It's a little peek behind the clinical curtain, A simple, handwritten note in his discharge papers from one of his nurses, Amy. It's personal, it's so encouraging, and it's just this beautiful reminder of the human connection that's at the absolute heart of medicine. All right, so the last part of this record, the last chapter, is all about what happens next. It's the game plan, the roadmap to make sure Gregory's recovery keeps going long after he walks out of those hospital doors.
So this isn't just good luck. This is a real, concrete game plan for him to follow. These are his marching orders. It's clear, it's actionable. Keep that blood pressure on target, keep monitoring it, continue with therapy, and even try out specialized stuff like aquatic PT to help with his recovery.
So you see, from what looked like a bunch of clinical notes and data points, this incredible story just emerges, a story of a crisis, of a team coming together, and of a really determined recovery. It just goes to show you that a health record isn't just a file, it's a biography. And it makes you think, doesn't it? Your story is in there too. So the question is, are you ready to read it?